Hi guys, Ross, storyteller from Boston by Night here. Going to try and do something new, which I'm not sure if it'll work or not sure if it won't. We get lots of absolutely gorgeous writing on the server, and I'm trying to get more confident speaking in front of a camera and just having some fun with it. So I wanted to read some of it to you, and hopefully you'll like it. This if this goes well, then hopefully we'll get other people who are interested in sharing their writing, and they'll be able to either read it out themselves, or I'll read it out myself, and maybe we'll make a little bit of a game of it. So to set this piece up, it comes from within a conversation of my character, Godfrey, who is the blind Priscus of the Sabbat, and Alice, who is the Malkavian prince of the Camarilla. So I'm just going to jump into it, I suppose, because don't know how else to start. Her laugh was the sparkle of a spring fair after the hardness of a winter had subsided. It was the thaw and the first blossoms poking through the soil, where young lovers meet and could dance the night away, at least in their imaginings. Somehow spring fairs are always timed so poorly, and one couldn't attend, maybe just look at those bright lights across the way when the sun set. More an ideal and a fantasy than an actual event where laughter was pleasant. Sorry, there will be mistakes throughout this. You'll just have to live with it. Her laughter was pleasant memories and fond imaginings. It was what could be, if one were lucky. The smile on his face was fond as she began to talk, talking of her discomfort like she had flayed her skin off to cloak all the neighbourhood waifs, as though she had scrubbed her fingers down to white joints to give them something they wouldn't even appreciate. His lips quirked and seemed to take notes on his gums as he listened, keeping a mental tally. She talked well, but she always had. It was like she sang her thoughts at you rather than spoke them, carving simplicity into poetry, the way that Bible scenes had been inscribed on stained glass so that the stories of Abraham and the white Christ could be beautiful in the eyes of the faithful. He supposed the alternative was to teach them to read, a difficult task within a cooperative congregation and protective priests. Godfrey supposed that's what he had been doing his whole life, teaching people to read his language on the edge of a knife. Suppose that's the difference, Alice. I am not uncomfortable with myself. I am uncomfortable with the world around me. The implications of what he would do to scratch that itch didn't need to be said. They were living with the consequences each night. He was staring at one of them, held her chin in his hand. For a moment he seemed to just stare into her, as though he were baptizing himself in her eyes and coming out free of sin. Humility was an interesting thing for the great and the good to consider, but for her he would certainly thought about it. But Genna isn't real, Alice. Isn't that what you people say? His face stayed straight and inquisitive, a finger raised as though to raise a technicality in the debate hall. Eventually his crooked smile won through and he chuckled while shaking his head, freeing her chin from his hand as he leaned back and began to gesture incredulously. Suppose I'm not here for them. Suppose I'm not here for any of those people, Alice. So I'm not doing what I'm doing for the peasants. I'm not putting on puppet shows for the simpletons. I am not here to clothe the beggars or to feed the hungry. I am building something beautiful and great. When was the last time anything was great in this fucking world? When was the last time you didn't wash yourself down so that you could taste good on the tongue of a man who was afraid of more exotic tastes? I will not simplify myself for children. I will not mash myself down so I can get past their lack of teeth. His hands seemed to call out for her to strike him. They seemed to welcome her blows of condemnation. They could have been impeaching a god to lay down a judgment, perhaps begging for this famine to subside. They seemed to beg and demand, to invite and banish everything. Those hands were expectant. I may not speak their language, Alice, but then they do not speak mine. They do not understand the subtext in the writing or the art in my words. They know only hatred and revulsion because they do not, cannot, will not understand me. But I am not here for them. I am here for the clear-eyed, the bold, the ones willing to grab destiny by the throat and demand something more from it. I am not here for the stupid. I am not here for the average. I am not here for the ordinary, for I have tasted the ordinary and it is tepid on my tongue. It is neither hot nor cold, and so I spit it from my mouth, and it tastes of nothing at all. I am here for the great. I am here for the glorious, the geniuses and the gods amongst us, for we are all our own gods when we put aside this fear of ourselves, when we set aside this discomfort that you feel. Only by being unafraid, by being uncurtailed, can we strive forward, advance ourselves, transcend these restrictions we have placed upon ourselves. If we pander to these masses who do not speak our language, we will never grow as we should to be worthy of ourselves and of Him. Let them have their picture books, but do not begrudge me finding truth in my words. He smiled at her, a little smug and a little satisfied. Maybe he had not known they were coming to this, or perhaps all of what he had been saying had been building to this demand, to this challenge which he threw down in the dirt between them. Godfrey's fingers came up to his own nose and seemed to run over where she had touched, as though it were a pillow which still smelled of her perfume, or perhaps a lock of golden hair, as his heart called across an ocean to her. There are truthful words, Alice. I do not fear that you will grow. I do still fear that you will grow to not love me. All men should fear, and I certainly fear that. Of course I do. Of course I wish to hear it. Of course I wish to hear that you love me still. The words were softer, a slow melody to dance close to one another, face to face and mind to mind, twirling blind between other couples they needed nothing from, seeing and knowing all they needed to of one another. They were all things to one another and nothing, for they were so very similar. Close enough to touch, close enough to love and feel, close enough to cut and to hurt one another. Oh, my prince, prince of my heart and seer of my soul, I give you what I have always given you. I give you all that I am without apology or shame. I offer myself as I come with no promises because I need none, and you would accept less. What else would you expect? Would you like me to cast a lasso for you out of starlight and snare you the moon? I'd do it. That's the thing, Alice. I would do it, and you know it. And you're afraid to ask me to do anything. So obviously that's in a much wider context, but it paints quite clearly the mindset going on within that scene. If you've got some writing which you think is beautiful, if you want to read it yourself or you would like it to be read for you to give some deeper context to it, get in touch with me. This is a new project, and so hopefully it goes quite well. Once again, this has been Ross, storyteller at Boston by Night, so keep your wits about you and keep an eye on the shadows.